Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. I am Sharon Francis, and I'm Business Advisor for the Minority Business Assistance Center, located here at the Columbus Urban League. We welcome you again, and we are so pleased to have with us today Lindsay Sims, who is with Grow with Google. She's a digital coach for Ohio, and we're so glad that she's here to join us and share with you about launching your business with marketing tools. And so this is the first of a series of 3 sessions. So we hope that you're planning to be with us for all 3 today, tomorrow, and Thursday. So I am, again, on behalf of our director, we welcome you. We have some of our team members also on watching along with us. So we're looking forward to exactly everything that Lindsay will have to say today. So I'm going to turn it over to her at this time. Thank you, Lindsay, for joining us.
Hello, everyone. I hope you all can hear me just fine. I'm very excited to be with you all today. I am going to be talking about how to launch your business with customer-focused marketing. We're going to break this into 2 parts so that you can get the most out of this information. And if you have been with me before, you know that I love to use the chat. So if you can, in the chat, go ahead and tell me who you are, where you are from. If you're in Ohio, where in Ohio? And if you're not in Ohio, where in the world are you? And then also, if you could tell me what your business is. I like to use your businesses as examples during the workshop. So it's a lot easier for me if you tell me who you are and what your business is. Some of you, I'm looking and I can actually recognize your names and I know what kind of businesses you're in. So that is great. But I still want you to tell each other because it's also a great networking opportunity. So I want you to go ahead and put that into the chat now before we jump in so that we have that information as we're going along. And of course, if you have any questions throughout, drop them into the chat. I am very, very good at reading the chat and chatting with you at the same time. So we don't have to worry about that at all. Like that's my jam. I'm a little bit of a pro at reading the chat and all that jazz. So that being said, let's jump into the entire conversation about launching your business with customer-focused marketing. So for us, that is going to be some very specific things, but let me introduce myself just in case you guys missed it earlier. I'm Lindsay. Hi, it's nice to meet you. I am the Grow with Google digital coach for Ohio. What that means is that I have been charged with helping small business owners across the state of Ohio to actually increase their digital skills. So my job is to help you figure out how to market your business better, how to get better at communicating with your customers, how to get better at doing the things that are going to help you make money and grow your business. Some of those things are using Google tools. Some of those things are not using Google tools because it doesn't really matter. What we really want is for you to grow your business regardless of what tools you're using. So, that's right. Okay. So, I don't know, Sharon, if you can make it so that the chat, everyone can chat to each other, that would be amazing. Because I would love for everyone to be able to see these lovely businesses that you guys have and actually see what you guys are doing. We got tea rooms available. I'm interested. I want everyone to see. So we changed the chat up for everyone to be able to see it. Okay, so that said, let's jump right in because we have an hour. Each of these workshops is only going to be about an hour, about 40 minutes or so. And so I want to make sure we're getting as much information in here as possible. So today we're actually going to be going over just a few really important things. The first is we're going to be talking about marketing towards your customer's journey. It is so important that we actually market towards the journey that the customer is having and not the one we think that they're having, but the specific one that they actually are having. And then we're going to talk about reaching out to them and building awareness and then engaging with them so that they can potentially become really great customers for us. If you are familiar with marketing, then you will have heard of this before. This is your top of the funnel. This is the part of the funnel where you're getting people to know who you are, getting that awareness in there. And then from there, you're going to nurture them into a relationship with you. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So what is that journey? What does it look like? One of my favorite quotes on the planet is from Seth Godin. Actually, he has several of my favorite quotes, but this one is great because I think that often as small business owners, we don't understand a very specific thing, which is that we as small business owners are in the business of making meaning. Meaning that it is more important that we actually help people to understand things and to learn and grow than it is that we sell stuff. We are in the business of making meaning. And if we make good meaning of our things and our stuff and what we do, it'll make it a lot easier for us to sell. So keep that top of mind as we go throughout the workshop today. We're going to be using this example in the workshop. But as I mentioned, I love using you guys as examples. So even if you can't share to everyone, I want you to still share it with me, what your business is and all that jazz, so that I can actually see like what you guys are up to. Because I know there's a few of us in here who are doing businesses that I've never heard of, like Posh Tea Time. So make sure that you're going ahead and put that information in the chat so that I can see it. Shirika and Shalon are actually small business owners who are one of my favorite stories because they have a business that was created somewhat out of necessity, but it was one of those kind of, I call it your high class problem. Like this person had a problem that was very interesting and unique to him, which was that he wanted to carry his lunches to work. He was actually carrying them to work already, but he absolutely hated the fact that everybody who, is carrying lunch bags, they're carrying like super generic lunch bags, or they're carrying a paper bag. And he was like, I am not a paper bag guy. I am a stylish human who wears suits to work, and I do not want to be carrying a utilitarian looking lunch bag. He wanted his lunch bag to look good, to actually fit with his style, his fashion, and how he actually approaches his appearance. And he didn't think that any of the lunch bags out there actually did that job. And so what they did was that they used that passion that he had, and he took that and created this brand. Often that's what a lot of us do. We actually have some idea. We have something that's really, really important to us. And then we take that and we go with it. We run with it. And we are oftentimes our very first customer is ourselves. Like we're solving a problem for ourselves. And once we solve that problem for ourselves, then we go out there and we solve it for other people. One of the challenges there is that if you are your customer, the second that you solve your problem, the second that you say, oh, wow, my kid has chronic pain and I need to solve this problem of managing chronic pain for my child, the second that you solve the problem, you become no longer your customer because your customer has yet to solve their own problem. It's amazing. And so what we have to remember is that if you are the person who has started the business and you've solved the problem for yourself, oftentimes your customer isn't really like, they're not on the level yet that they have solved the problem. So we have to almost revert back to the point where we didn't know how to solve our problem. And that's where you're going to be doing your marketing from. Very important little mindset shifts there. So you're going to come back to the point before you actually were able to solve your problem into the part where before you solved it, what was your mindset there and how did you actually resolve to make a decision that you were going to change? That's really what we're talking about here. And so our customer journey is going to start from that position well before someone actually solves their problem. What does that look like for them? So what we're going to talk about is these core 3 topics here. What are the ways that we're going to create meaning and tell stories? How do we build relationships and build trust and build credibility? And then how do we influence customers along their journey? So people are going to have whatever kind of journey they're going to have. And our job isn't to try to make them have a specific journey. That is not the point. The point is that we need to figure out how to influence them along the way. So they're having their journey, and our job is to actually participate in the journey that they're having, not to direct them or try to make them do something other than what they were already doing. The best way to do that is to be mostly aware of what it is that their journey is. So their journey looks a lot like this, except for that if you are me or anyone else out there, especially if you are selling something that is not a necessity, this is not a straight line. Most people's journeys are much more complicated than this. So they become aware, usually they become aware that they have a problem before anything else happens. And then they start searching for the options that are available to solve that problem. And that's when they hopefully become aware of you. So there's a couple of levels of awareness there. It's the awareness that they have a problem, and then it's the awareness that there are businesses out there that are solving that problem. Then there is the consideration phase. I love using the analogy of going to a restaurant and looking at a menu. So once you are at the restaurant, you already know that you're solving for the problem of hunger. Like you've decided you're going out to eat because you are hungry and you need to eat. So now you're here and you're at the consideration phase. Now you are going to decide what it is on this entire menu of options. Which options are you going to choose from? In the consideration phase, there are tons and tons of factors. And often what will happen is that you will be considering ordering the salmon salad, salad with the grilled salmon on it. And the waiter will come to the table and start giving you more information. They will give you details about things that are on the menu, that are things that are available that maybe aren't on the menu. Or someone else at your table will ask a question and you'll go, oh, now that you're asking that question, I didn't even see that other item that you're asking the question about. Now I'm looking at that item and going, oh, that sounds really good. That sounds like a reasonable option that fits within my Weight Watchers points, whatever the thing is, right? So you're going to consider what those options are, and you might even go back and change what you thought your decision was. And then the purchase is essentially, in the restaurant analogy, it's the point at which you decide and you place your order. So once you've placed your order, you're essentially placing you're doing your purchase. They bring the food to the table, you eat the food, you pay for the food. The next step is advocacy. Now, for a lot of us, the advocacy can happen if you are a repeat customer of that restaurant. The advocacy might start happening at the consideration phase. So if you've been to this restaurant before, you know how great their salmon salad is. Everybody else is talking about all these other things, and you're going to sit there and advocate. You are like, you don't even understand. The salmon salad is the best thing ever. You have now become an advocate for that thing. Like you've decided, I love it. I think it's great. I've had it myself. Yes, I have had salmon salads at other restaurants. They do not compare. This one is the best. That's when you know you are an advocate. And that is when you know you have advocates, people who are willing to say that the thing that you do is so much better than other people that they're willing to come to you for it. That is where we're all trying to get to. We're all trying to get to the point where someone didn't even know the thing that we do existed, all the way through to the point where someone is out there without our knowledge telling other people about us and telling people how great the thing is that we do and how they need to show up or how they need to buy it or how they need to eat it or whatever that is. But we all want to be transitioning through this exact cycle, acknowledging that it isn't just a straight line. There are definitely ebbs and flows and things that happen in the meantime that are going to be, your audience is going to be distracted. There's all sorts of things that are going to happen. So our job is to lay out the path and then to participate in the marketplace while people are being distracted and doing all the things that they're doing along their journey. So in today's workshop, we're going to talk about these first two things. And then tomorrow, we're going to talk about the second two things. So today we're talking about awareness and consideration. Those two things map up really, really well to reach and engagement on our side. So on our side, as business owners, we want to reach as many people as we can so that we can increase awareness. So that's what that is. Reach as many people as you can so that you can increase awareness. And then you want to do the next level, which is to engage with them so that they actually consider you. You want to help them answer as many questions as you possibly can so that they can actually consider you and consider your business. We're going to talk about those two things exclusively today. And then tomorrow, we're going to talk about how to get them to buy stuff and then how to get them to turn those purchases after they purchase it and they love it and they know they love you forever, how to take that and turn it into advocacy where they are telling people about you and evangelizing your stuff everywhere that they go. Okay, so let's jump into it. How do we reach people? So in the chat, I told you guys I wanted you to participate in the chat. And very fortunately, it looks like you all can. So if you haven't yet, I want you to go ahead and put in the chat who you are, where you're from, what your business is. If you have a business idea, maybe you haven't started your business yet, you're at the point where you're still in the idea phase, drop your idea in there. I want to know what that is too. So go ahead and put that information in the chat. You should be able to chat it to everyone right now. And then I also want you to tell me, how do you think people find your business? Okay. So how do you think people find your business? What's the way that you think people find you? Yes, thanks, Amy, for go ahead and putting that information in there. Daisy Pops. So how do we think people find us? What's the way that people find you? Once you put it in there. Thanks, Lisa. Love seeing people coming in from other states. Curabella, Nancy, word of mouth. Okay, so Lisa thinks people are finding her via word of mouth. What else? How do we think people are finding us? Go ahead and put that information in the chat. Ella, you're located in Columbus. How do people find you? You're the one with the tea room, I think, right? So how do people find you? What's the way that they're actually finding your business? Go ahead and put all that information in the chat. I want to know from you guys, how do people find you? Okay, networking, events, vendor pop-ups. That's a really good one. Social media. Okay, so you have a few ways that people are becoming aware of you. I like that. I like that. Now I want to know from everyone, before they become aware of you, how do they become aware that they have a problem in the first place? So put that in the chat. How do people become aware that they have a problem? And for those of you who sell something like a luxury photo booth or something like that, everybody has a problem. There's something that you're solving. How do people know that they have a problem? So if you're selling a luxury photo booth, what kind of like reasons do people have for needing a photo booth? What happens in their lives that they know that they need to have a photo booth, right? For Ella, how do people know that they need a mobile tea room? Like, how do people know what is happening in their life that they need a mobile tea room? How do people know that they need cake pops? Okay, so Amy started us out right. People are thinking that they need a quick little treat and a way to bring some joy into their lives. That's one way, Amy. But I know that Amy has a good portion of her business is actually coming from corporate clients and businesses that are ordering for their customers. So what's their problem that they're solving for? What is that? Because yes, cake pops are great for like instant treat, but it's only great if you're like, Amy, you would have to be everywhere in order for someone to be able to use that reason to know that you exist. And you're not everywhere. You're only where you are. It was just a few places, but not everywhere. So what did that look like? So how does that, okay. Oh, Lisa, I love that. They're itching and scratching. They can't stop itching. So for Lisa, it's the point at which someone realizes that their dry skin is a problem. Like it's not just aesthetic, but it's actually causing them itching and scratching. And maybe it's causing them to scar or experience pain, right? So the itching and the scratching is good, but maybe it's also a visibility thing, because when I read Lisa's name of her business, Lisa's business name sounds a little fancy, which means that she's not just selling Jergens, right? So it's not just lotion. And the people who are buying this are also thinking, oh, wow, I don't just want to have my legs not itch or my face not itch or my, shoulders not itch. I want them to be beautiful, which means I don't want to scratch them. Right? I don't want to scar myself with scratching. And so that is another thing. Maybe for Lisa, this is why we have to step a few steps back and say, for Lisa, maybe it's simply that someone realizes that they have scars on their body that they don't remember why they got them. Like, oh my goodness, what is that scar from? And it's from scratching. Or they have scales. I know I have scales. And so they have scales. They have something, some part of their skin is unsightly. And that's it, right? Maybe that's it. So we need to be thinking a little bit before some of the things that you guys are putting in. What are those things that people really are like, wow, I can't stop itching. What's going on here? Or for Amy, what is it that's happening before they get to the point where they order a dozen or 100 or 45, 2 dozen cake pops? What is that? So, okay, Amy says they need to make a memorable way to draw attention to their business. That's it, Amy. They're like, I want to stand out from the crowd. So there's someone out there who's like, obviously, once I know I want to stand out from the crowd, I'm going to start Googling things related to that. But right now, that's what they really want, is to stand out from the crowd. And they want the opportunity to do that using something like a QR code, which is everywhere, but maybe they don't want to put it on a posted of what is a postcard. Maybe they want to put it somewhere interesting and unique that people will remember. And so that is a really good thing. I think people want to know, they want to be remembered. Okay. So for all of you, I want you to be thinking about what it is that people are like before. So for Ella, again, bespoke tea parties. Why do people want that? What's the thing? What's their trigger event? What's the trigger thought? What's that thing that gets them to want it? And I want you to think about that because it matters for the marketing. So yes, a lot of you are getting your customers via word of mouth or advertising, but a lot of us are actually relying, especially if you're trying to grow, there's going to be a decent amount of search happening, right? So it's not necessarily that people are advocating, but it's more that people are like trying, they're in the internet trying to find answers to these questions. And what we have to do is figure out what to put out there that answers those questions in advance around awareness, around just that high level of, I didn't even know that this was a problem until I knew it was a problem. And now I need to solve this problem. So that is what we're working on. Those are the things that we're trying to fix for. Now, at that point, there's a few things that you're going to need to focus on. You're going to need to focus on who the customer is more than anything else, because the more specific we can get, the easier it's going to be to figure out what their specific trigger or problem is. And then you're going to have to figure out how you communicate your brand to those people. Now, we just had a perfect example of this from Amy. So Amy just gave us a perfect example because in reality, Amy has more than one customer segment, as do all of us. So if you are a mobile tea shop, because a mobile tea party, I know exactly who your customers are because I am your customer in theory. I'm not in Columbus, but in theory, I'm your customer. I am a person who is getting married. People who are getting married tend to do the bridal showers, baby showers, and then other girly related things that people do, all sorts of those types of activities. So the second that you start planning the wedding is the point at which you start having an awareness of all of these things that people are doing right now for their bridal showers. Like, as I saw my wedding planner the other day, just posted a things have changed kind of post that's like, it used to be that you'd have a bridal shower in your house with your friends and family. And now we're having like all out events for bridal showers. Like, this has changed with catering and photographers and everything, decor, things have changed. And so as a function of that, the content around that is going to be very specific. So if you have a mobile tea room, you're going to have multiple audiences. Just like Amy, you have multiple audiences, or like Nancy, you guys all have multiple audiences, multiple groups of people that are actually potential customers. Asia, same thing. You guys have these multiple groups of people who are your potential audience. Now, what you're going to do with your marketing is figure out who those people are and then talk about how to target them. Now, how do you figure out which one to go after first? Let me answer that question. I can hear it in your head, even though you didn't type it in the chat. The answer for me is that I want to go after the audiences that have the highest potential revenue. So these are going to be the people for whom I can charge them once and they pay for like 3 months worth of clients in that one fee. Some of you have those clients and some of you don't. Some of you don't have like an institutional client, institutional meaning that it's one client that's going to cover a whole bunch of expenses. You might not have one of those clients. But if you do have a client segment like that, you're going to go after that client segment first. And then from there, the other one, if you don't have an institutional client, meaning one that's like, they essentially buy a whole bunch of licenses or cake pops or whatever for a lot of people. Someone who's renting out your entire mobile unit for an entire bridal shower. So they're paying for everyone who's going to be there. If you don't have an audience like that, then you still want to go after the audience that has the highest potential to bring you in the most revenue. So that is going to be the people who have the most pain. And when I say pain, I don't necessarily mean physical pain, even though for Nancy, that is the people who have the most physical pain. The ones who are having acute problems, meaning things that are happening right now that they feel like they need to solve immediately. So for Lisa, that might be people who have eczema, people who have a very specific, easily identifiable problem that they need to solve, maybe even during which winter is going to make it worse. So you're going to go after that customer segment first. Now, from there, you're going to dig deeper. So for each of you, if you can, I would love for you to put in the chat, who is that customer segment for you? Who are the people who you think, if I identified them, what's that group that looks the most lucrative to you? Who are the people who are going to either buy the most products or are in the most pain? People who are the ones who are like highest need. What does that look like for you? Who are those audiences? Go ahead, drop them in the chat. I'm going to keep talking about what we want to do after we know who they are. Because after we know who they are, it's when we start figuring out what the marketing looks like. All of this stuff is layers. So we figure out who these people are, and then we figure out how to market to them. So once you guys start chatting, I want you to think about who those people are. You're going to look more deeply at that audience, and you're going to give me specifics. So demographics, psychographics, geographics, and behavior. I will tell you, for the most part, demographics are not going to be the most important part, unless you are Jay. So if you're Jay and you run a co-op in a neighborhood, demographics are going to matter a lot because you are actually trying to meet people in a neighborhood. So the biggest demographic there is going to be your geography, right? So the demographics and geography on that one kind of cross because you're looking for a specific group of people who live in a specific area who are also cable users. But psychographics is going to be a bigger one for most people. Okay, so most people, it's going to be psychographics and behavior that are a little bit more useful, right? So Amy dropped one in there. She said women 25 to 55 who are the ones in charge of planning events for their families and their companies. Okay, so the in charge of planning events is the big one there. So people who are in charge of planning events, and this could be psychographics, it could be people who like to take charge. That's part of the psychographics there. But more than anything, this is a very behavior-focused thing. So they are the people who, whether they're taking the charge or not, they're the ones who are doing the work, right? So if Amy is going to do marketing towards these people, then her marketing needs to center around the behavior of event planning. Now, Amy gave us two very distinct groups. One of them is for families and the other one is for companies. Now, if you are the person who is planning the events for your family, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're the same person who's planning the events for your company. And I would say there's a reason why we want to make sure that there's a distinction there, because even though it's a Venn diagram overlap, there's going to be some people for whom they plan both events for their families and events for their companies. There's going to be a little bit of overlap there, but there can't be 100% overlap. There's definitely going to be some people out there who are absolutely 100% never planning anything for their companies whatsoever. And there are some people who are doing tons of event planning for their companies and never planning anything for their families. That's not their personality. This is the reason why we look at psychographics as a part of our little mix there. So they might have some other thing or someone else on their team or someone else who is doing a good portion of that other type of planning. So we want to make sure that we're being very specific about the group that we're targeting so that we're not trying to target two groups of people at once, because it's very, very easy to do that. And it is very bad for marketing. You absolutely do not want to target more than one group of people at a time. We're talking social media here. In social media land, there is literally no reason to try to kill all the birds with one stone. There's none. You have no limit to the amount of social media posts you can put out on the internet. You have a limit to your time, but you don't have a limit to the number of posts. And so if you're going to make a campaign that is specific to an audience, you want to get specific about who that audience is. Okay. That's where we want to get really, really, really clear. So for Amy, I would even go back and say, okay, It's usually women 25 to 55 who are planning events for their company. Now, if we're only talking about people who are planning events for their company, then we can build a persona. If we're talking about people who are planning events for their families, we can build a different persona. This is going to be the thing that is going to give us an idea of who these people are so that we can target them very specifically. I think this is like your best bet for trying to figure out how to use your marketing effectively. So Ella's like, TikTok is my kryptonite. That's so funny. I hope it's your kryptonite in a good way and not a bad way. But I will actually use TikTok as an example of how useful it is because you can post as many times a day as you want. Now, there's some platforms for which that's not true, but those are usually not focused on business. So if we're a business people like we are, we're talking your main platforms are going to be Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'll call YouTube an option. YouTube is an option. But then I think I did skip TikTok. So TikTok would be the last one. Those are the platforms that you can post on as many times as you want. And if you are doing a highly targeted campaign, it's amazing because people will, first of all, the algorithm will forever be in your favor. This is the thing that people misunderstand about algorithms. Everybody hates the algorithm, except for that the algorithm is working for you. It is doing the job for you. You just have to give it specifics. The more specific you give it, the more likely it is to be able to share that information with the right people at the right time. It's when we try to give it to everybody that we lose. So be really, really specific. First things first, if we're talking about those people who are event planning for a professional environment, then you're going to go, okay, this is a woman who has maybe an MBA or who is a business major in college. She is running the office. She might be the office manager, or she might have a very specific title. If you want to get at those bigger companies, she might have the entire title as the event coordinator for the organization. Now that's next level, right? So we're looking at that. Then you're going to go very specific, college educated. She is working in a professional business environment because we're talking about events here, right? She herself might be interested in food, especially if she's ordering cake pops. She might be interested in food. She might be interested in graphic design because of the types of cake pops that Amy does. This is something that a lot of people are interested in, the design aspect of the cake pops. She might be the kind of person who wants to shop with a small business instead of using some large corporation. These are all things that you would put in her customer profile, and you're going to use those things when you are building up your marketing, your materials for your marketing. Ella, yes, you can include income ranges, but I wouldn't include them just to include them. I would include them if they're going to be useful for you for designating this person. So if your brand is an upscale brand, meaning that you are targeting people who are looking to have high-end or high-level experiences, that is going to usually require a higher income, which means that you then do want to target people who are at that higher income. So what do I mean by that? So if you have, I'm going to use Asia's examples because Asia just said wedding and luxury event. So if you have someone who is in that space where it's a luxury event, then if you're targeting them, you might want to use marketing that has high luxury markers in your marketing. So if you're talking about someone who is potentially planning a tea party, then you're going to use tea party examples where people are dressed in designer clothing. You're going to use examples of people getting engaged with very large diamonds. You're going to use, these are all visual cues that we're talking about a luxury experience. So you wouldn't want to use visual cues that we're talking about a general, generic, or mid-range experience. You definitely want to avoid that. Or you want to use those experiences, use those graphics as a way to say, this is not what we are, right? If you want to have this mid-range experience, you're going to need to go with a mid-range creator, right? So, because we are not the one. But you absolutely want to include that if that's something that is important to your marketing. Now, you would want to do that in the other direction as well. So if you are, let's say, Nancy, with the app that they have, their app might not appeal to people who are in that high level luxury end of the market. It might be something that's specifically for people of all incomes who are having a specific type of experience with paying for their children. At that point, then you don't want to have any luxury markers in there because you don't want to exclude people based on income. So it's really just a function of that more than anything, right? Now, if I were you guys, I would take a screenshot of this or take a quick picture of this slide, because this is how we start thinking about the words that we use, right? Oh, Nancy, lowering the price. I tell you what. It depends on the audience. Sometimes that lower price can actually get people in the door. Now, the reason why I want you to take a picture of this is because I want you to think through these different methodologies of using the persona. Often we build a persona and then we don't use it, but I want you to be using it in all of these different ways. So first, thinking about what channels you are going to be on. So not everyone, but a lot of you actually told me which of the channels which of the areas that you think people are finding you, right? When you think about the channels that your audience participates in, it gives you a much higher idea, a much better idea of who in the internet you can partner with. So if you look at channels and you say, okay, so wedding and luxury events for Asia, and a lot of that maybe for Ella as well. If you two who don't do the same thing, mind you, for a living, you guys are very complementary and it looks like you're in the same city. You could be posting with each other. It's complementary content. So if you know now on Instagram, you have the ability to do a collaborative post where it's two different brands that are posting about that same piece of content. There isn't any reason why you can't do that with each other. So you would find someone who has a complementary, not competing business that is definitely, oh, good, you do work together, so that you guys actually have that content that's sharing out on both platforms. So if it's local boutiques, so there might be a few local wedding bridal shops that you guys can partner with as well. And you can partner with them for your social media content. Maybe you guys can do some YouTube videos. You might even collaborate on a small scale event, right? So maybe you all get together and throw a little open house tea party, right? So it's just, I love that, besties. Amy's all about the puns, y'all. And so that is the channel. Each of these is ways for you to engage around that audience. So once you figure out who that audience is and get super specific about who the audience is, then it makes it easier to figure out who your partnerships can be with, right? Who the audience is going to be, your partnerships is going to be very specific to your audience, very specific to your persona. Same thing with that imagery. So as I was saying earlier, if you're selling that luxury experience, then you want to have those luxury markers in your content. Because if you don't have those luxury markers, then people don't know visually that you're selling a luxury experience, which might mean that you need to do some photo shoots. You might actually have to hire a model to come out and do some photography and be a model in your photography, and hire a professional photographer or videographer to show what it actually looks like to be your customer. The words that you use matter. So remember, I said the algorithm is here to work in your favor. If you're using the wrong words to describe your thing, the algorithm doesn't know to point this content in the right direction. So we always want to be using the right words, not just the right hashtags, but literally, if you're posting without using keywords, you are missing out on the opportunity of explaining what you do to exactly the people that you're trying to explain it to. Now, I will tell you, because I know a lot of you are being very curated with your social media, meaning that you want to be on brand and you need everything to be super specific and you only use certain language and it's all about you. I will let you know, nobody cares about you like that. And so all of that extra level of branding that you're doing to make sure that your feed is curated and that you look all this certain way, for the most part, that is doing nothing for anyone in your audience. It is only serving you. Just saying. What you really want to do is make sure that all of that curation, all that attention that you're putting into making sure your colors are matching, that you're making sure the colors match what your audience wants, making sure that the words match what your audience want, making sure that all the attributes that you're using are ones that work for your audience. Because it doesn't matter how minimalist or aesthetic your feed is, if your audience does not care about an aesthetic feed, it is wasted energy. It is completely wasted energy. So you have to know what your audience cares about in order to actually deliver that to them. Now, then is when you can include your brand after you've done this. So after you do the work of figuring out who the person is, like we just did, went through the personas, marketing directors who are fun, who've been at their company for a few years, really useful marketing sales directors who have influence in their company. They can actually drive things. They are the boss of they run the show. Those are the people. So you have that idea. You know that they are the boss. You know that they are a woman likely, and that they are the ones who are, when they tell people that TikTok is where it's at, people believe them. Like those people, then what does it look like to market to her? That's the content that you're going to put out there. And then after that is when you want to make sure that that content fits your brand, right? So figuring out what that content is first is going to be more useful to you than trying to figure out how to make everything that you do be within a brand message, okay? Your brand doesn't mean anything without engagement with your audience. Your brand is useless unless it is engaging with your audience, okay? Most important thing first, engagement with the audience. Graphic elements, all of those things go all the way right back to what your audience cares about. I would highly encourage all of you brand conscious people, which I know there are several of you in here because I know your brands, very brand conscious. You want to start thinking about collecting branded icons, graphics, messaging, collecting, like creating maybe a file or a note somewhere that has a set of images, a set of graphics, a set of messages for each of your audiences. Why? Not to serve as a place for you to pull so that you can just copy paste messages from your notes to your social media, but to serve as a way of visually reminding yourself on a regular basis who your audience is so that you don't float off into the internet ether and start doing content that is not useful to them, okay? It has to be useful to them. It has to be useful to them first, and then it has to be useful to you. So that's where you come into play. So again, with the idea of TW Totes, this whole lunch bag idea was useful to him first. But then after that, they actually looked at their audience and thought, no, how does all of this relate to our audience? How does who we are actually relate to our audience? How does who we want to be actually relate to our audience? And then how does who we stand for actually relate to our audience? Like those are the things that we want to actually engage with. And yes, Asia, I love that. And then from there, we can actually create some brand statements. Now, I am a big fan of making sure that your brand statements are as plentiful, essentially, as audiences that you have. Every single audience you have, you might want to develop a brand statement, a brand positioning statement that says who you are, what you offer, what differentiates you for that audience, and then how do you deliver a promise for that audience. So again, if you are going back to Asia, again, if you got multiple audiences, you have your wedding and luxury, you have your corporate, you might want to create a brand positioning statement for each of them so that you have an idea of what that looks like for each of your audiences. Again, take a quick screen grab. This is your brand positioning statement template. I love the idea of adding in that mission in there, making sure that you have a promise or a reason for someone to care. Because the more you can include that, again, it's ammunition for algorithms. If you add in that why people should care aspect, it makes such a big difference. So Eric just dropped it into the chat, what the brand positioning statement is. You guys feel free to copy and paste that for yourselves. I want to make sure that you guys have that information going forward. But this is like a huge, huge thing. So I'm going to work one up real quick since we've been talking about Amy and her cake pops and the fact that she's going after these people who are doing corporate events. We'll talk about corporate events. So for corporate event planners who want to have a way for their brand to stand out from the crowd at a expo or a trade show, and you be specific about what these types of environments are. Daisy Pops, for some reason, her name of the business popped in my head. Daisy Pops provides branded cake pops that also include a QR code. So branded cake pops that include a QR code, because we believe, and then Amy can throw in a pop pun because she loves pop puns. So because we believe that all small business owners should have the possibility to grow their business through our cake pops or something like that, right? So what does Amy believe about getting cake pops into the world, right? So, oh yes, there we go, Nancy. We believe that all small businesses should be able to afford to make their business message pop, right? Like something like that. So you would put that in there as your brand statement for these corporate clients. And then let that be your guiding force. This can be something that you put out on social media. You can absolutely share your brand positioning statement, or you could just use it as a guiding principle for yourself. It doesn't have to be something that's public. It can be, relatively speaking, private, right? So I want you all to do that for yourselves. You know, this is a challenge for you to do in your own time. I'm not going to have you do it right now. But if you do it, I want you to share it wherever you want to share it, right? Lisa, whatever your customer's challenge is, that's the very, very, very first part. It's the why. So I think that you have the skincare brand. Why do people want skincare? What is it that they're looking for? Yes, they might be itching, but why are they itching? What is the actual problem? It's not just the itching. So are they itching because they have winter dry skin? What is it, right? So we have to find out what that thing is. You already know. I promise you, you already know what it is. It's just a matter of getting really, really clear about that. And then also figuring out what those segments are within it, right? Sometimes this is harder to do if you have a lot of reasons. So if you have a lot of segments or a lot of reasons why people need you, this is even harder, which is why I said start with the one that makes you the most money. So if it's something relatively obvious that people always come to you for because it solves a problem and you make a ton of money from those people, start with them. Start with their problem. They're the ones you want to solve for first. Now, once you get this brand positioning statement, once you start getting clear about your messaging, you want to put it everywhere. Everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. You want to make sure that it's on your website. You want to make sure that you're using it in your social media messaging. You want to make sure that you are putting it, if there are directories available for your business, putting that in directories. If you do not yet, make sure that you get yourself a Google Business Profile so that you can put this information in the Google Business Profile. For anyone who does not know, your Google Business Profile is searchable, meaning that if you fill out your profile and have all of the proper information in there, it is going to make it a ton easier for people to find you, find your business based on the keywords that you are using about your business and about your audience. So that's why you want to have those multiple statements so that people who are your actual audience might be able to find you. In addition to even having the profile, though, you can put posts on the profile. So we'll talk about that for a second. Once we've identified who these people are and we've sort of like figured out what that core message is, and then maybe started thinking about like the channels that we can use and the different icons and attributes, and we're really starting to develop that like it's almost a high level strategy. We're starting to develop that introductory strategy. How do we even get these people into our universe and know that we exist? Once they know you exist, you have to take it to the next level. And you have to get their basic answers and their complicated answers to questions answered, right? So they're going to have some very basic questions, and they're going to also have some extremely complicated questions. I'll use Amy as an example because one of my favorite things that has happened recently is that, and this is perfect for engagement, is that my fiance, who is here, Eric, he's just dropped into the chat. He's a real estate agent, and he's going to be at a real estate show over the next couple of weeks. And so he wanted to, we knew we were going to run into Amy at some point in the universe because Amy's everywhere. We ran into her, and he was like, I'm going to ask her in person. And I'm like, what are you going to ask her? Because I know the answers to Amy's questions because I know Amy's business very well. I'm like, what do you need to know? And he's like, I don't want to know from you. I want to know from her. So it's a perfect example of how people behave. Like this person who is a real exact human who has access to someone who he just wants to talk to Amy, who I'm like, I could answer any of your questions. I've ordered stuff from her. I've worked in businesses that have ordered from her. I know how her ordering process works, all of those things, right? But that is like, he wants to talk to her. right? And she did have a booth, which is very useful. But most people want you. They don't necessarily want you. Like he wanted Amy, but it doesn't have to be Amy. Amy had a bunch of people working at her stand, and they were answering lots of questions while we were standing there. And, you know, we were talking to her, but there were plenty of other people getting their questions answered, but every single one of them had questions. And what our job is to actually communicate the answers to those questions proactively. And when I say communicate them, I mean communicate it often. Often we get stuck and we only want to communicate once or twice. And the answer is, oh, no, it's all the time. You have to figure out what people's problems are, address their challenges, and then put that stuff out there online all the time. You basically need to be doing Ask Me Anythings, AMAs, all the time, because otherwise people don't actually know. Like, they don't know what you do. They don't know what's going on. And even if they think they know, they're confused enough to want to hear it directly from you. That is what we need to solve for, is that if we're not communicating, almost over communicating how to order. So once someone figures out, oh, I think I want to do one of those QR code corporate orders with Amy, how does that even work? That's the question. So now Amy needs to answer every question that comes with that. Like, do I need to know what colors to use? What are the things that are related to that? She's answered all of those questions. Now for her, it's a little bit easier because Amy actually does do like shows and expos and things like that. So people ask her questions in person. She actually has plenty of those questions that she could use to put out on social media to start answering those questions that she gets at the shows, answer those exact same questions on the internet for everybody who wasn't at the show. But for those of you who are like, but Lindsay, I'm not at a show, use Google. Google the things that you think people want to know. And then don't just use that basic answer. You're going to use the related searches because Google is smarter than you. It is. I'm sorry. It is. It just is. And so what you're going to do is look at those related searches to find out what else people are asking. Instead of just like, how do I help my kid who has chronic pain? There's a bunch of other questions people are asking. Look at those related searches to see what else they want to know. And then outside of that, there are Google Trends. You can look at Google Trends to actually see what else people are looking at. You can see what people are asking in Ohio versus other places. Or if you're in Texas, you can see what are people asking in Texas about skincare? Like, how do people in Texas deal with dry skin when the weather in Texas is dry relatively all year round? And so how do people deal with dry skin? Like here, we have like a dry season, but for the most part, it's not dry in Ohio. It's very humid. It's very moist. I mean, my skin doesn't care about that. It dries out all year long. But there's people who are in Texas and like maybe people who are new to Texas and they've never experienced this climate before, and it's very dry and they're trying to figure out, how do I deal with my dry skin in Texas? Use Google Trends to figure out what people are talking about. And then be specific. You want to use this kind of search refining so that it's not just, oh, dry skin. Yeah, you type in dry skin, but get more specific. Like dry skin on my hands, like dry hands, or really dry scaly elbows, or really dry knees, or my knuckles are always dry. Be specific. Because the more specific you can be, so for those of you who do events, you're going to get really specific because people are like, well, I'm planning a bridal shower, but I'm the only person who's planning a bridal shower for 120 people. What does that look like? And then someone else is like, well, I'm so special because I'm planning a bridal shower for 25 people. Everybody thinks they're special. And so be as specific as possible, because the more specific you can get with answering those questions, the better. So you can say, oh, we do both. So here's all the information for people who are planning small wedding bridal showers under 25 people. And here's the ones for people who are planning large bridal showers over 100 people. And then here's the information for everyone planning somewhere between 25 and 100. Now you have answered questions for a ton of people in 3 different ways, making sure that you're getting that information out there. So once you've figured it out, please share the answers. Share the question and share the answer. So don't just share the question, share the answer. And don't just share the answer, share the question. because people will look at your answer and not intuit the question. So just because you made a post about how you serve people who are doing bridal showers under 25, if you don't say in there, this is specifically for people who are doing bridal showers under 25 people, they will not know that that's what it is. They will be confused. And when I say that, they will, I promise you, they will be confused and they'll be like, well, that doesn't apply to me because I don't know what small means. A small means 75 people. Don't let people be confused. Over explain, because the more you give them, the more information you give them. Again, for Amy, it might be, there are people out there who are like, I don't know. This is the reason why Eric wanted to ask. I don't know if my order is a small order. I have no idea how long it's going to take for her to do my order. It's special. His order is not special. It's exactly like everybody else's order. It's not special at all. And so, but him not knowing meant that he needed to ask the question. So Amy needs to proactively get it out there and then use every channel available to you to share that information. And again, share it and share it again and share it again and share it again. Matter of fact, you might want to, if you're using a social posting software, you might want to just schedule resends on a lot of this information so that you're just putting it out there regularly over and over and over again. And again, this is just sharing frequently asked questions, specifications, demo videos, samples for every single one of you. All of you can do this. Every single one of you has frequently asked questions, specifications, demonstration. The more of that you can do, the better, because people will buy once they understand. Once they understand and they don't have any barriers to entry, that's all we're doing here is we're just knocking down barriers to entry left and right. Once we've done that, it makes it so much easier for people to actually make the purchase and feel really, really, really comfortable with it. And on top of that, when you solve their problem and you answer their questions proactively, that ingratiates you to them. They feel like they know you now. Like there are people probably who walk up to Amy and are like, oh my God, you're Amy. I feel like I know you. People do that to me. And so like absolutely helps them build that relationship before they ever make a purchase. It's so, so useful. Now, I got down to the wire. Knew I was going to do it. I want to know from you all in the chat before we go over our little resources. For everyone here, what did you learn? Go ahead, drop it into the chat. What do you feel like you know now that you did not know before? Go ahead. I'll let you do that while I give you your recap. First of all, just to give you some quick information about what we talked about today is that you want to be focused on that very, very top of the funnel, the reach and engagement, making sure that you're reaching the right people with the right information and then oversharing answers to their questions. You want to basically plan out as many answers to questions as possible, letting everyone know, of course, that you are actually answering their questions so that there's zero confusion there. And go from there. And then tomorrow, we're going to talk about all of the parts where we get them to buy something. So today, we're talking about getting their attention and getting them to like you. Very important. We want them to like us, but we also then need to get them to the point where they're willing to pay and also willing to advocate. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. If for some reason you're interested in doing career certificates with Google, there's definitely some certificates available for that. And if you want to review this content, YouTube, there is a Grow with Google YouTube channel that has a lot of videos. I'm actually in one of them, and I'd be happy for you to go out there and check that out. I would say, Dorica, it's going to be very dependent on the audience that you're serving. There are some people for whom you want to share answers regularly. And then also, Dorica, audience being as specific as possible means that you can end up sharing, let's say, one answer to a frequently asked question every single week. And that wouldn't be weird at all. It wouldn't be weird at all for you to be out there sharing information on a regular basis. Not strange in the slightest. If you would like to, I would be more than happy if you would share a little love, let Google know that you enjoyed this workshop since you guys got so much out of it. If you didn't, also let them know. I want to know. They don't share these with us. So if you fill out the survey, feel free to be completely honest because they do not share that information with us. We have no idea what you guys said in your evaluations of us. But thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. I appreciate it. I hope you come back tomorrow. We are going to, again, go over the second part of the funnel. And then on Thursday, we're going to talk about how to sell online.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Lindsay. I mean, there was so much I was trying to take notes. I couldn't keep up with everything. But nevertheless, I'm looking forward to tomorrow's session, and I hope that you all will be able to join us. And we'll be talking more about this and getting ready for session number 3 as well. So again, hope that you all have a great afternoon, and thank you for taking time to spend with us today. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.